Hey guys, welcome to Tech Simplified TV. After multiple requests, finally here is the much awaited series beginning today with the first episode on interview questions and answers in Perl in VLSI. Today and next few episodes we will be covering few common areas from where the interview questions are asked in Perl. So stay tuned, stay focused and enjoy the learning experience.
Hey guys, welcome back. Let's begin. First, I'll talk about the interview preparation. So, whenever you think of interview, right, there could be two specific scenarios that you can take preparation from your side. The first one is generic or subjective. Means when you are learning a subject, any topic, say Perl programming or Tcl programming, you are going in depth in that subject. So this is a generic or subjective learning. And when you are taking your preparation in this particular way for a generic way, that has a different pattern of preparation. And there is a second kind of preparation for interview, that is specific or JD based. That means you have seen a job description somewhere in any job site, and according to that you are applying in that particular job role. So there has been some email exchange and then the company is setting up an interview for you. So this is a JD based or very specific interview preparation. So in the first case, when you are doing a generic or subjective preparation, what you should do, you learn as much as possible from any learning resource that you find around you over the internet, or maybe it's a book. Whatever way you are learning, you learn. And the general way, you take notes of all these things that you are facing and you are learning from different resources. When you gather all these notes together, it will be a consolidated document that can help you further whenever you have to rehearse or when you have to do a retake of the entire thing in future. So this is way of handling when you are taking a preparation from a subjective or generic way. Now let's come to the second way, that is specific or JD based. So in that case, you must scrutinize the JD, check whatever things already you know, and if there is something that you don't know, you must seek the knowledge about all these unknown sectors. And if there is some connection in between your known and the unknown part of your knowledge based on that particular JD, you must bridge that gap and you must establish those connections with your known and unknown areas properly, so that when you give the interview, it becomes very much seamless. So this is a generic kind of guide of the interview preparation, what I have just depicted to you, because the series that we are right now doing, that comes in the first category, that is generic or subjective. Obviously, the second one comes to the picture when you have applied to one or more jobs in that case. So things should be very much clear in your mind what you are doing and why you are doing. So when you are going through this particular episode, what should be your mindset, and according to that you are learning. That's why I have cleared your mind with two different types of preparation for an interview, and we are all set to go now. Let's move on to the next slide. Question direction. So guys, before starting any question and answer in an explicit manner, I would like to tell you one more thing. The question direction, it is a very crucial thing. It's difficult to visualize. However, I tried to give infographics that you can understand. One question can be asked in multiple ways from multiple angles. Even if the language, say we are talking right now in English, even we rephrase a single sentence in different way, it may appear different question. However, the underlying fact is very much same as the answer. So when you are taking a preparation, don't just have a kind of lookup table in your mind that okay, this is the question and this is the answer. You must apply your mind or push your mind to think what else way this question can ask based on whatever knowledge you have, whatever logics you have in your mind. So this is the purpose of this particular slide. We are done with the slide, so let's move on. Question and answers, page 1. So next couple of pages there will be short question and answers. Each page there will be multiple questions. So let's begin. Hashbang user bin Perl -w. What does the -w means? This is a very common question. It means that the Perl interpreter will issue a warning wherever applicable during the code execution. Sorry for my typo. I have typed per, which should be Perl, Perl. This is the warning issue. So it's basically good for you when you are doing the Perl coding. Without this, there will be no warning. And I think there is another module like use warnings that we would use inside the code. Like we use strict, there is another warning module, use warnings, that also does the issuance of the warnings. So just now I have give you two angles of the same question. This can also be asked, if you are not allowed to use the -w, how you issue the warning? In that case, your answer will be, I will use the use warning statement, or I will use the warning module. This way you should cultivate the things in your mind so that you have the full picture or the bird's eye view how the questions can be asked. Let's move on to the next question. Are the variables in Perl case sensitive? It's a very important question. Yes, the Perl is very much case sensitive. So if $var, that is in small caps, is completely different variable than $var, where var is in upper caps. The next question is how we can do a single and multi-line comment in Perl. Single line comment, I have shown you so many comments when I have gone through the Perl series in VLSI. Now, however, the multi-line comment, I think I have not shown any example. However, you can do it. Hash is a single line comment. Then what is the multi-line comment in Perl? So this could be another way of asking the same question. So here answer is there. The hash is for the single line comment. And what is the multi-line comment in Perl? One line should be with equal to for starts the multi-line comment, and you should not keep anything else in this line. So just this dash for and dash cut ends the multi-line comment. Sorry, not dash. This is equal to for and equal to cut. Okay. These two kind of statements will comment out any number of lines in between these two statements. So these can be used as a multi-line comment in Perl. So folks, we are done with this particular slide. Let's move on. What values of a variable is considered as true and false in Perl? Now this true and false is a very important concept. To us, the true and false is different. For a programming language, the true and false is again different. Now, 0 is the number itself is false. The empty string, that is only the two quotes are there, and the string that is 0 within two single quotes are false. Okay, these two are false. Undef is false. Anything else is true. So these three lines which we have stated as false are false. There is nothing else counted or taken as false in Perl. Everything else is taken as true in Perl. So this could be even used in a if condition or somewhere else. How to execute a Perl program when you do not have permission of writing in a particular disk? So this is a very important and tricky question. So you don't have a write permission and you have to run a Perl code. How do you do that? By this way. If you write Perl-E, then print hello world. This is an example. So within the single quotes, the Perl code will go, whatever the code is, that will be executed without writing in the disk. This is the only way you can do the Perl code execution without any physical file in the disk. So this could be another version of the question, that without any physical Perl file in the disk, how can you run a Perl code? We are done with this particular question. What is the value by default associated to a scalar when it is declared but not assigned? So scalar variable you have already known, variables in Perl episode. What is the value? Default value. We have not assigned manually any value. So my $var, when it is defined as like this, it contains the value undef. This is the answer. So we are done with this particular slide and questions. Let's move on to the next slide of questions. Came as a repetition, I have just discussed. Move on to the next question. What are the data types in Perl? There is no separate type declaration for integer, real, double or float in Perl. This you might have seen in C or any other language that you have learned in college or maybe in an institute. Like that, Perl do not have any type declaration. Anything can be assigned in the value of a variable. So pi equal to 3.14 and then it continues. It's a real number. $animal is equal to camel is a string. $AB is equal to $A star $B. It's a mathematical operation. $out is backtick PWD is an output from a command stored in $out variable. So folks, you can see that there is really no predefined data types in Perl. Anything you can assign to it. This is another beauty of Perl. So this way the Perl do not have any kind of reservation. That is what I will say for the types of the variable, and you can flexibly move inside Perl for variable usage. So we are done with this particular slide. So let's move on. State the difference in between my, local and our. So this slide contains single question. The answer will be captured here. Before giving the answer, I would like to mention one thing here, that this question can be asked in multiple ways. That what is the difference between my and local? What is the difference between local and our? And what is the difference between my and our? So you can do all these combinations in your mind. So let's look into the answer. A my declares a listed variables to be local to the enclosing block, file or eval. If more than one variable is listed, the list must be placed in parenthesis. Okay, so if we are declaring multiple variables, we must keep inside a parenthesis. Otherwise, we can write my then dollar variable. In this way, we can define it. A local modifies the listed variable to be local to the enclosing block, file or eval. If more than one value is listed, a list parenthesis must be there. So this is for single and multiple declaration. Our creates a package variable, declares an alias or a package variable that will be visible across the entire lexical scope, even across the package boundaries. So these are the three basic definitions. Now, here I start with the example. So package foo, then our $bar. So this declares the $foo : bar variable. So and it's the lexical scope. We can then assign $bar equal to 20, package bar. We write our bar equal to 30 and then print $bar. Then again our bar. This will emit warning but has no other effect. Next we print the bar, it still prints 30. So my declares a variable, and wherever we define it, for that particular scope it declares that variable. Generally most of the time we use my. Local is if you are using a block or code. There you have doing some coding, say a for block or if block. Okay, so there you are writing. So you already have a global variable which is declared outside that particular block, and you want to have a local value of it, but you don't have to change it. So in that time you can use local, and our is used entirely for the package thing. So this way these three particular definitions are there. I'll suggest you to go through the series. There you will find examples, and accordingly you will proceed. Go inside the Perl in VLSI series, find out the examples, and in case you have some questions you can ask in the comment section down below. Let's move on to the next slide. What are the reserved variables in Perl? $A and $B special package variables when used with sort $A and $B don't need to be declared using use vars or our local, even when using the strict vars pragma. So this is a very important question. Some variables are completely reserved in Perl. You cannot use them when they are used in a reserved mode. So $A and $B, when we are using the sort, they are used as a reserved one. $_, the default input and pattern searching space, it's a global variable. So this $_, I have given several examples in the series. However, I will be repeating some of them in a short and sweet manner. The following functions use $_ as a default argument. These are the list of Perl functions. These are predefined Perl functions. They use $_ as a default argument. Now, when you are using a $_ as a default argument, you can use it as is, and there you do not need any kind of variables. So you can go ahead and do that. So this is very much clear to you. And the series I have given several examples of $_. The pattern matching operations, that is matching, that is aim double slash, or substitution like es triple slash, or the transliteration, that is tr then triple slash. Okay, all these things uses $_ in absence of the equal to tilde operator. So this is a very good question, and I'll ask you to go ahead and search for examples in the Perl in VLSI series. In case you don't find, let me know in the comment. I'll give you the answers. The default iterator variable in a for each loop if no other variable is supplied. So for each loop uses generally one particular variable, that is iterator, right? So that is the main variable on which you iterate the entire loop. So there, if nothing is specified, the $_ will be taken as the default variable. So in all these scenarios, the $_ is used as a default variable. And one good thing of this, and which can be asked as a question also, that what you will do to reduce the number of variables in a particular Perl program so that your memory consumption, that is the physical memory consumption, is less. In that case, the answer will be $_ that we should use frequently. And here are the cases I have mentioned. You should instantiate all of the cases. You must take one example with you so that you can give an example if you are giving a face-to-face interview. Otherwise, if you are giving an online interview, in that case, you must keep an example handy with you so that you can speak it out. These are the reserved variables for Perl, and there are some more. We'll come to them. Guys, I have discussed the different ways of asking a particular question. You must concentrate how you can approach a single question, that is a single fact, from different angles. That will broaden your mind and that will culture the thing in your mind so that you will be prepared to face the interviewer. We are done with this slide. Let's move on. We are continuing the answer here. @ within a subroutine, the array @ contains the parameter passed to that particular subroutine. Inside a subroutine, @ is a default array for the array operators pop and shift. This thing is very much important because $_ was a scalar, right? And in Perl we have non-scalar also, that is array or hashes for array kind of variables. The @ is the default variable. The %env, the hash %env contains your current environment variables, and their values can be manipulated by this particular hash or associative array. So from Perl, we want to access the entire system variables that are in the Unix shell. They are defined there. So this, the %env is a reserved one. You cannot use this for any other purpose. This is a reserved variable. @ was also a reserved variable. $_ is also a reserved variable. @inc, the array @inc contains the list of places that the do expr require or use constructs look for their library files. It initially consists of the arguments to any -l command line switches, followed by the default Perl library, probably user local libperl. So it looks for the command line switches. Next, ISA. Okay, so ISA is a specific variable. Each package contains a special array called @ISA, which contains a list of parent classes, if any. This array is simply a list of scalars, each of which is a string that corresponds to a package name. The array is examined when the Perl does method resolution, which is covered in Perl object. Guys, I have one entire episode on Perl object. Go ahead and watch that. You will understand this particular ISA variable, that is @ISA variable, and you will understand the usage. Now in interview, when a question starts, the question can bifurcate from any answer that you give. So you must be prepared for that bifurcation and going in further details in a different direction from where the question started. So this is another thing that happens inside an interview. So here, that's why I'm giving the pointers where it can be hooked, and from this particular point there can be a branch out. So you must be also prepared for all those branch out. Reserve variables for argument. Okay, so here we are talking about argument. $, the process number of the Perl running your present script itself. So if you are running a script from Unix shell ./something.pl, the $, is the process number. $0 contains the name of the Perl program. So abc.pl you are running, so abc.pl goes to $0. Then digits $1, $2, etc. contains the sub pattern from the corresponding set of capturing parentheses from the last successful pattern matching, not counting patterns matched in the nested blocks that have been exited already. So this comes from the pattern matching, that is aim / or S, triple slash, all these things, that regular expression area. From in that particular area, you have the $1, $2, etc. So get the more details, please watch the regular expression episode. There you will get all the details. Just now I have mentioned that if you once you give the answer, the question can bifurcate and go in further details. So it's not always a simple question and a simple answer. It can have multiple branch outs. Dollar then %, the string matched by the last successful pattern match, not counting any matches hidden in a block or eval enclosed by the current block. This is again pattern matching. Please watch the regular expression episode. You will get the details. $argv, that is argv, contains the name of the current file when reading from the diamond operator. @argv, the array @argv contains the command line arguments intended for the script. So these are done. All these things are very good enough. So please focus on each of the bullet, where each bullet expands into a next level of detailing. When you are asked if you give a particular answer, right, you must be prepared for the further bifurcation that goes to details of that specific area. So all these things are reserved variables. I think last 2 slides also I have spoken about the reserved variables. So when you see all those things, you must be also ready for the entire theory. We are done with this particular slide. Let's move on. Thank you very much for watching up to this point, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. In case you have some dislikes, put that in the comment section down below, and bye for today.